Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a major turning point in the war between Russia and Ukraine. The story of how what was once seen as an unbreakable lifeline, Russia's land bridge to Crimea, may finally be falling apart. This moment, often described as the unraveling of Russia's southern stronghold, marks a shift that could reshape the conflict entirely. For years, the land bridge has symbolized Russia's control, connecting its mainland to the Crimean Peninsula, a territory it annexed in 2014. It wasn't just a geographic connection. It was the artery that kept Crimea alive and functioning as a military and logistical hub. The Kerch Bridge, stretching across the Kerch Strait, became the centerpiece of this system. Opened in 2018, it linked Crimea directly with the Russian mainland, providing a critical route for supplies, troops, fuel, and weapons. To Russia, the bridge was more than concrete and steel. It was proof that Crimea was theirs forever. But what was once seen as unbreakable is now showing deep cracks. Since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, Ukraine has made it a clear objective to sever Russia's ability to use Crimea as a supply base. From the early days of the war, Ukrainian strategists understood that cutting off this land bridge could cripple Russia's ability to sustain its southern forces. And as the war dragged on, Ukraine began targeting that bridge with increasing precision and persistence. The first major strike came in October 2022 when an explosion tore through part of the bridge. It was a devastating symbolic blow. Russia claimed it was a terrorist act. Ukraine hinted it was a military operation. The attack temporarily halted traffic and forced Russia to reroute its logistics through longer, more vulnerable land corridors. Though Russia repaired the bridge, the myth of its invulnerability had already shattered. Then came 2023. That year, Ukraine ramped up its campaign against the bridge with sea drone attacks, striking it again in July. Each new hit didn't just damage the structure, it sent a message. Russia could no longer assume its strategic infrastructure was safe. These attacks forced Russia to deploy massive defenses, from naval patrols to radar and underwater barriers, in a desperate attempt to protect the bridge from further strikes. By 2024, intelligence reports and satellite imagery revealed a significant shift. Russia had drastically reduced its military use of the bridge. Freight trains carrying ammunition, vehicles, and supplies nearly disappeared from its tracks. Instead, Russia began relying more on overland routes through occupied southern Ukraine routes that were longer, riskier, and within range of Ukrainian strikes. This shift marked a quiet but important turning point. Russia wasn't abandoning the bridge entirely, but it clearly no longer trusted it as its main supply artery. Then, in mid-2025, Ukraine struck again, this time with an underwater attack using remotely operated sea drones loaded with explosives. According to reports, over 1,000 kilograms of explosives detonated beneath one of the bridge's supporting structures. Russia quickly claimed the bridge was fine, but photos and satellite images told a different story. The attack caused significant damage to the underwater supports, forcing Russia to suspend traffic for repairs once again. At this point, analysts began describing the land bridge as no longer unbreakable. Each successive attack had made the connection weaker, both physically and strategically. The bridge still stood, but its reliability had been deeply compromised. And that was the real victory for Ukraine, not necessarily to destroy the bridge outright, but to make it too dangerous and unreliable for Russia to depend on. The consequences of this are huge. For Russia, the weakening of the land bridge creates logistical chaos. Crimea relies on steady shipments of fuel, ammunition, and goods from the Russian mainland. With the bridge unreliable and Ukrainian drones threatening sea routes, those supplies now have to move through narrow land corridors stretching hundreds of kilometers through occupied territory. These routes are vulnerable to strikes and sabotage. Every extra kilometer of supply line means more trucks, more fuel, more risk, and more delay. For Ukraine, disrupting the land bridge is both a military and psychological victory. Militarily, it weakens Russia's ability to launch large-scale offensives from the south. Psychologically, it breaks the illusion of Russian permanence in Crimea. The bridge was supposed to symbolize the idea that Crimea was now part of Russia forever. But every explosion, every temporary closure, every damaged support beam sends a different message. Russia's grip on Crimea is not unshakable. It also affects how Russia can defend Crimea itself. The peninsula is heavily militarized, hosting air bases, missile systems, and command centers. But all of that depends on steady resupply. The more those supply lines are stretched or disrupted, the harder it becomes for Russia to defend its positions or launch new operations. Some analysts now believe that Ukraine's ultimate strategy may not even be to invade Crimea directly, but to isolate it completely, to turn it into a logistical trap for Russia. From a broader strategic perspective, the fall of the land bridge is about more than just one structure. It represents a shift in how modern wars are fought. Ukraine's campaign against the bridge shows that precision, innovation, and intelligence can overcome sheer size and firepower. Instead of trying to match Russia tank for tank or plane for plane, Ukraine identified the critical weak point, logistics, and attacked it relentlessly. This approach has also forced Russia to change tactics. Instead of focusing purely on offensive operations, Russia now has to spend enormous resources defending infrastructure. Protecting the Kerch Bridge alone requires radar networks, patrol boats, and anti-drone defenses that drain manpower and funds. And even then, Ukraine has repeatedly shown that no defense is foolproof. Meanwhile, for Russian leadership, the bridge's repeated damage carries a political price. The Kremlin invested billions of dollars and years of propaganda into the bridge, presenting it as one of Vladimir Putin's signature achievements. Its weakness undermines that narrative. Each new attack fuels discontent among nationalist commentators and pro-war bloggers who question how Russia's supposedly strong military can't even protect its own bridge. Economically, the weakening of the land bridge also matters. Crimea's economy depends on stable transport for goods, fuel, and tourism. Interruptions have caused shortages, long lines at gas stations, and higher prices. Civilians on the peninsula feel the impact directly. For Moscow, that creates a new layer of pressure. Keeping Crimea supplied is not just about the army. It's also about maintaining the loyalty of the local population. As Russia scrambles to maintain its connections, it's experimenting with new supply routes. Some go through the occupied Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, linking up with the Russian mainland through Melitopol and Mariupol. Others rely on ferries and cargo ships across the Azov Sea. But these routes are longer, less efficient, and increasingly threatened by Ukrainian missile and drone strikes. The result is a fragile network of supply lines that could break under sustained pressure. What makes this moment so significant is that it shows the war's balance may be shifting. For much of the conflict, Russia's advantage has been its sheer size and industrial capacity. The ability to throw resources at the front faster than Ukraine could destroy them. But logistics are the invisible backbone of war. Without reliable transport, even the largest army becomes vulnerable. by striking at the bridge and the land routes that support it. Ukraine is attacking that backbone directly. This shift also has implications for future operations. If Russia can no longer rely on Crimea as a logistics hub, it may have to pull back forces from southern Ukraine or divert supplies from other fronts. That opens opportunities for Ukraine to advance in key regions like Zaporizhia or along the coast. Every kilometer Russia retreats from is another step toward isolating Crimea completely. Still, it's important to understand that Russia isn't defeated. The bridge isn't gone, and the Kremlin remains determined to hold Crimea at all costs, but the dynamics have changed. What was once a symbol of dominance is now a liability that must constantly be defended. Each repair, each defensive measure, and each rerouted convoy drains resources. The fall of Russia's land bridge to Crimea is therefore not just a story of physical destruction, but one of strategic exhaustion. Ukraine has forced Russia into a position where it must fight not only on the battlefield, but also against time, cost, and geography. Crimea, once seen as Russia's crown jewel, is becoming a burden. In a way, this story encapsulates the larger truth of the war. Strength isn't just about how much territory you control. It's about how well you can sustain it. The land bridge once represented Russia's ability to sustain its conquest. Now, its fragility represents the limits of that power. For Ukrainians, this moment is deeply symbolic. It shows that determination and ingenuity can overcome even the most daunting challenges. Each strike on the bridge is not just a military act, but a statement of intent. That Crimea's occupation will not be accepted as permanent. For Russia, it's a painful reminder that even massive military power can be undone by precision, patience, and persistence. As we look ahead, the question becomes not whether the bridge will stand, but whether it will matter. Even if Russia repairs it again, its strategic value is permanently diminished. Ukraine has shown it can hit it anytime, from anywhere, with evolving technology. That uncertainty alone changes everything. A bridge that cannot be trusted is no longer a bridge. It's a liability. So when we say unbreakable no more, it's not just about steel and concrete. It's about the breaking of confidence, the crumbling of an illusion. The land bridge was supposed to make Russia's control of Crimea irreversible. Instead, it has become a symbol of how that control can be challenged and possibly undone. The war continues, and both sides are adapting. But this chapter, the fall of Russia's land bridge, will likely be remembered as one of the defining moments that reshaped the course of the conflict. It marks the point where a structure meant to cement Russia's dominance became the very thing that revealed its vulnerability. Thanks for watching, and if you found this deep dive helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. The story of the land bridge isn't over yet, but one thing is clear: what was once unbreakable is no more.